Okay, it looks like the recording has started, so I'll hand over to the co-chairs. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Naz. So I will start off. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Councillor Adal Dogan. So in the chair, in place of Councillor Ahmed and PC Simon Crick, we are the co-chairs of the Community Safety Partnership. I welcome this meeting of the Community Safety Partnership. Please note that this meeting is being recorded for the live and subsequent broadcast via the Council's internet website. Is there any apologies?
Sorry, just 1 second. Right, so obviously, Councillor Perry Ahmed, Simon Crick, Rachel Lizawa, Stephen McDonnell, and Pete Shaw.
Great. Any urgent business?
None received.
Okay. Declaration of interest. Any members' offices have declaration of interest? Just go through the chat. None. Item 5, minutes, page 1 to 6. Do any members have any comments on the Community Safety Partnership minutes on the 8th of December? So the minutes agreed? Yep. Excellent. So we're just going to vary the agenda because Joe will need to leave early. So I'm going to move Joe's item at the top, which will be the Haringey probation. And then on item 9, we will hear the community tensions. Okay?
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, all. My bit's going to be really short because I'm going to introduce my colleague from London Probation, Russell Simmons, who's going to present the item to the partnership. Russell, I don't know if you want help in loading the presentation up, or are you happy to do that from your end?
I will attempt to share it, but just before I do, I'll just introduce myself. Thank you for having me at the Haringey CSP. I've just joined in December, so very recently, as Deputy Head for Enfield and Haringey, London Probation. And what I really wanted to, other than introduce myself, the reason I wanted to present today was to come at my first meeting with the offering of a resource, and I wanted to get some buy-in and perhaps some ideas. I'm not sure how long I've got at the moment, but I thought it was a quite nice topic to introduce myself as I kind of land into Haringey, because there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity for us to look at a potential, I suppose, gap in services to meet the needs of those that have entered the criminal justice system. So and I'm by no means a data analyst person, so you'd have to bear with me, but I've got a set of data and it is in your pack, and I will share part of it in a minute on the screen also. This is a piece of work that was done by our data analysts in London, Probation, looking at our needs. Now, just before, there's quite a big caveat on this. Colleagues I'm sure, are well aware that the probation service back in June formed as one service again. So no longer is there a separate private and public sector. We're all one London Probation. So the terminology is no longer National Probation Service and London CRC. We're back as one, which is great news. So the data that I'm going to share, or that's in your packs, was taken at the end of October, I believe, and does not account for all of the London probation cases because of the merging of the organisations. So it was a snapshot taken of data at the back end of October last year now. And what it's trying to identify is what are the needs of our service users? So what are the needs of those men and women aged 18 plus in relation to their offending? Now, without showing any data, you're probably thinking it's the usual issues, accommodation, mental health, etc. And you'll see in your packs that it is very much those issues. These are the needs that present time and time again. We have an opportunity we have some money, which is great, but it's pan-London money. So the figures might sound a fair bit, but it is pan-London. So when we break it down equally across all the London boroughs, we are, well, if I give you the figures, so over 3 years, we have approximately half £500,000 for year one, £1.1 million for year two, and I believe just over 3 million for year three. And that is money to spend on a resource that we think would be useful for the London Borough of Haringey. So like I say, that sounds good, but it's got to be, this is pan-London, so all of the boroughs will be, putting in bits for resourcing. And I should imagine what that will equate to is a worker to deliver something, okay? But what I would quite like to do, and I've got a deadline of, I've got to send back a paper into my headquarters by the end of this month. What I'd quite like to do is just have a very quick sort of presentation of the data. If I were to present all of it, we'd be here for hours, so I'm not going to do that today. You've got it there for you. But what I would like to do is to invite partners. I will put in the chat my email to invite partners to go away after this and have a little think about where there might be needs in Haringey, and then we will look to form up a proposal. And the only other thing to say, I can see Anne's already put her hand up. The only other thing to say is there is this pot of money. Not all, I want to sort of to get in there in terms of Haringey. Not all boroughs will put in bids, and which is great because there'll be more money available. And as my mum used to say, if you don't ask, you don't get. So that's fully what I intend to do. Just before I share some of the data, Anne, have you got a question?
Thank you very much, Russ. It's always good news to welcome people particularly who come with money. But no, welcome very much. I just wanted the clarity. Is it £500,000 for Haringey, or is that pan-London? £500,000 for £500,000 for Haringey, 1.1 and then 3.3, or is that pan-London? Sorry.
No, unfortunately, it's pan-London.
Okay. Okay.
But doing the maths, and I'm not a stats person by any means, doing the maths, if you divide that by all the London boroughs, you can start to work out the cost of that will probably equate to a worker delivering as part of a service. But it can be, and this is something we can explore, it can be, and I'm brand new to Haringey and Enfield, by the way. I've worked West London all my career, so I'm not so used to this area, which is why I've come here and want to get some ideas. Yeah, so it can be used. There can be an existing service that you might tell me about, not necessarily today, but you can go away and think about it. But there might be an existing service where we might think that an additional worker may be beneficial, and that we can use it in that way. So hopefully that makes sense. I will share, it is in your pack and there's a lot of data in there. And the headlines are pretty much what I've already identified, in the sense that these figures, before I share it, it's probation speak, unfortunately. So there may be some terminology, and we like an acronym and we like terminology. You may not understand all of it, but the assessments that the probation officers do identifies a need linked to their offending. So, for example, quick example is drug use links to offending. So whilst we might consider that somebody using drugs, for example, it might be criminal and antisocial, there might be cases where the probation officer does not attribute their drug use to their offending behaviour. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so within your packs are two separate documents. There was a PowerPoint, and then there was a sort of a summary of that. So let me try and share this with you, and then you'll see why I don't particularly want to talk all the way through it. Okay. Let me go back to the beginning. Hopefully you can you see that?
Yes.
I'm going to hopefully.
Yes, we can.
Right. Okay. So this was my apologies. This was actually a snapshot in the end of November. Oh no, sorry. No, it's not. We'll move on. It was the middle of October.
Oh no, you froze.
Sorry. So, okay. I'm just going to skip through some of this. Okay, so the report talks about, and I very much dislike this word, but we refer to in probation criminogenic needs. So these are the factors in the middle that link to offending behaviour. So very, very quickly, just the headlines. So the overall probation service caseload taken at that time was just over 38,000. 67% of the cases were currently in the community at that time. And medium risk of harm individuals accounted for 64% of the caseload. Within London, there were over 150 different nationalities that have entered the criminal justice system. And a large percentage, so 61% of the caseload, is made up of POPs, is our terminology for people on probation, who identify as Black, Asian, or minority ethnic. There are some other interesting data. You can look at this for yourselves on your screen, but 24% of all of our caseload have identified as having a disability. You can see at the bottom there, the biggest needs are thinking and behaviour, attitudes and lifestyle. And then this is why I didn't want to go into great detail, and I would invite you in your own time after this meeting to have a look at the figures in closer detail. It breaks down some of those criminogenic needs, and it breaks it down into every London borough. And apologies, it may appear quite very small on your screen, but hopefully there's a way that you can enlarge that with the pack that was sent out. But essentially on the right, just to explain, I'm just looking for Haringey. Haringey features fairly high, something like the 5th or 6th one down, borough down, 33%. So what that means is 33% of the current caseload, or as of the middle of October, had identified as accommodation being linked, or their lack of accommodation linking to their offending behaviour. So I will invite you to, and I will go, quickly flick through the slides, but I'm not going to read out every stat there. We've got financial needs. Haringey actually features pretty much at the top of London. So it just showing you there that there is a need around financial support. And Haringey features as the top London borough, according to the probation officer's assessments, this is. We've got drug misuse. Again, Haringey features very highly on that as one of the top London boroughs. Thinking and behaviour. There's so much detail here. Honestly, I couldn't go through every slide. Females, 7% of the overall caseload are female. You can see that burglary, robbery, and theft and violence are the highest offence for the female caseload. So quite a violent cohort of individuals. 34% of female caseload identified as having a disability. So that was higher than the general caseload. Now, young adults, this is a particular area that I have that I'm interested in personally. Young adults, so bearing in mind that we don't deal with under 18s, they're dealt with by the Youth Offending Service. So over the age of 18, when our young adults cohort are considered the 18 to 25-year-olds, and they account for 22% of our overall caseload. 52% identify as BAME. I'm sure not too surprisingly, 36% of offences are in relation to violence, 28% of drugs, and so forth. There was just a slide here also on Gypsy Roma travellers. I'm not familiar with Haringey and whether or not this is a prevalent issue for Haringey, but Gypsy Roma travellers account for just 0.44% of the overall caseload. However, 31% of this group contributes to the custody caseload. So I'll stop sharing there. What I will say is the other document summarises in a little bit more, or quite a bit more detail, in relation to Haringey. That document is an Enfield and Haringey document, so you need to look at, I think it's page 7, the second half of that document is in relation to Haringey. I can see people are happy to take some questions. I hope they're not too stat related questions, because I might be that I have to go away and find out. I'm not really a numbers person at all. But just before I take those questions, just to say what the ask is from me is, I don't know Haringey. So what I'm hoping to get from this, and not necessarily today, because I'm obviously conscious of the time and you've got a packed agenda, what I would invite people perhaps to do is over the course of the next week, Joe may want to say something on this, but over the course of the next week, I will leave you my email and any ideas that partners have or individuals have where you think there is a particular need. And like I said, it could be an existing service, but we need a little bit more extra that a worker could do to contribute to that service. Or it could be a need that exists in Haringey and you feel that there's a gap and it's not been explored. Then please let me know, because I want to get these bids into the centre. I know that was a very fast tour, but Joe, did you want to come in?
So Russell,
Oh, sorry. Oh,
sorry. Before Joe, I think Jackie had her.
Apologies, Jackie.
Okay.
That's right. Thank you, Russell. Really interesting presentation. Oh, sorry, I've got a bit of an echo. It might be needing to mute, Joe. Thank you. Yeah. So really interesting presentation. I think I'm the Assistant Director for Early Help Prevention and SEND, which includes the Youth Justice Service for Haringey. And when I was reading your presentation, I thought, I imagine I'd need to go back and look at our data, but it's very similar data in the youth justice cohort. So the two questions I had it would be really good to know, it is a stat question, unfortunately, of the 22% of the 18 to 25-year-olds, what the breakdown of ages are, because if where we're seeing the peaks, because if it's really the 18, 19-year-olds, then I think there's something about if they came through the youth justice as part of transition, what work are we doing collectively to address that? So that would be really good.
Yeah. And so, oh, sorry, is there another part to the question?
And then the second part was also I was surprised at and I think it's under emotional wellbeing, or it might be under thinking and attitudes, but that the mental health wasn't more of a prevalent need, because certainly within the youth justice cohort, that is the overarching need. It's around SEND and mental health is what we are seeing predominantly in our youth justice cohort, which is that 16, 17-year-old age range.
Yeah, I mean, certainly on the ground, that is what officers are feeling. So the data in itself, you know what it's like with data, I don't always trust the data, because what we're feeling on the ground is that there are a lot of issues with mental health, and we are trying to tap into services. So the data, I agree, the data doesn't necessarily correlate to what we're feeling on the ground. I'm happy with the first part of your question. Like I say, I couldn't possibly answer it right now, but happy to kind of look into that further. And I wasn't going to say this, but I will say, particularly as I've got I've come from youth justice sector, so previously, and I'm very interested in that transition work. Joe and I have had conversations with Joe's counterpart in Enfield as well. So we're having the same discussion with Enfield, we're quite interested, and we may look to replicate this in Haringey, but we're quite interested in those young people who are leaving care, and looking at some sort of service that would add some additionality to their support. So we haven't shaped that yet exactly. We don't exactly know what that will look like, but we're sort of on the same stage with Haringey in the sense that by the end of the month, I want to put some proposals forward to our centre that deals with the funding. So it is the younger people, and like I say, we are the adult probation service. I'm talking about the 18 to 25 group is something that personally I would like to see something done with, but not necessarily. So you might go away and do some thinking, think actually we've got a specific need. It needs to be related, obviously, to the criminal justice sector, but as long as it links to that, if there was an overwhelming kind of need for something more localized to the borough of Haringey, then absolutely we'll put that through as well. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily be, if we want to put through a couple of proposals, then we can do. So yeah,
that would be really great. And Joe, if you can obviously pull Emma Curmudgeon into the work, because I think about 25% of our youth justice cohort are young people who are looked after. So we'd definitely be interested in exploring that with you. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to actually add to you kind of stole my thunder a little bit there, because we've had some kind of preliminary discussions, and based on some of that data, which is all self-reported data, by the way, so often that can bring its own anomalies. And mental health, unfortunately, is still a stigma for a lot of our young people, so they don't often want to declare that when they meet someone for the first time. However, I think Russell has kind of given a kind of broad outline, but what's important to remember, it's not a large sum of money. It's quite a small sum of money per borough. So it's I think one of the asks one of the reasons Russell came today is to really get us to think about where we think our priorities are. I agree, certainly around the young adult leavers, service leavers, because we know that they do make up a proportion of our criminal justice cohort often, and they are often more at risk of criminality, unfortunately, for whatever reason, and may require. But there's other areas such as spot purchasing of accommodation, for example, for those that are fleeing violence. So, I mean, the sky's the limit, really, I think, and the more we can come up with, I don't think there's any kind of ceiling on this, is there, Russell? We can just put in as kind of, not as many, I'm not saying 20 bids, but certainly we could put in a good few bids. And the more we put in, the more likely we are to get it.
Yeah, like I said at the start, you don't ask, you don't get. So I want to do the asking, and we'll get what we can out of it. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I'm happy to be the stock on this side, so kind of colleagues can come back through me, and I can kind of link in with Russell, etc.
Absolutely.
So the next is Sandeep.
Hi there. Thank you. Thank you, Russell. Really interesting presentation. Really appreciate you bringing this to the board today. So I actually did look through the data in depth before this. I thought it was particularly interesting, some of the differences in the criminogenic needs for males and females, particularly within Haringey. So things like ETE, which is a much bigger need for female individuals, whereas things like drug misuse is far more kind of a male focused need. So I think that's really interesting. I think it highlights some of the things we've spoken about previously at the boards here, where we have to understand people's individual needs, and particularly rather than just banding everybody together when we're trying to, for example, intervene or try to support individuals, particularly those who are previously been involved in offending. And we really do need to tailor our responses. And I think this kind of evidence is really helpful for that. Thank you. The only other thing I wanted to add was we used to get criminogenic needs data many years ago. And what was helpful with that is then we could compare kind of over time how the needs have changed. And it's really helpful to see this data now come back. So it would be helpful going forward if, in 6 months or a year or whenever it was, you're able to share maybe the next cut of the data, and we can look at that kind of longitudinal change of how that's, because I think that's really helpful for us as a board to understand. And then also very finally, if in terms of putting in these bids, if there's any support from a data or analytics perspective that you need, then feel free to touch base with myself via Joe perhaps, and we can see how we can support any bids that are going in order to demonstrate things like need for Haringey. I can probably support with that. So thank you.
Thank you for the offer. Yeah, I will. It probably makes sense, as you say, to liaise via Joe. But absolutely, I think if Joe can be I mean, I know Joe from the probation side from yesteryear, but nowadays, obviously with the borough, that makes sense to be a sort of a go-between. And I'm having regular meetings with Joe, so that's fantastic. And like I say, I'm not a stats person by any means, but I'm hopeful that this is data that can be produced by our analyst team in the centre, who deal with the because we're a London-wide organisation, so they deal with a lot of requests. I'm hopeful that this will be at least an annual report, that I'm happy to share that. Unfortunately, I'm never going to be the best person to verbalise data, but I can definitely send it and do my best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're next.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dogan. Russell, thank you very much again for your presentation and the data. It was really packed. I'm just wondering about impact, and I am so grateful that we're having additional resources. However, as has been mentioned quite a few times in this meeting, that it's a comparatively small amount of money, and so therefore I'm thinking about how best to have impact with that. And so I do agree that building on existing projects, programs is probably the best way, rather than starting again on something. Joe, am I picking up from you that you're going to be the point of coordination so that we can decide where we might be able to put, and agree across the partnership, because this is a partnership, and there might need to be a one-off meeting where we decide where best to put our resources. We know in the local authority, even if it doesn't come up in the in the presentation, that mental health is absolutely critical and key. And I still have in my mind the work that was done by Mind and the police about the number of 135s and 136s, and I'm really keen that we in Haringey over time work to prevent those. And so I understand the need, as of course I'm the Children's Director, sorry I forgot to introduce myself, and Graham, Director of Children and Young People Services. Absolutely, transitions is important, but I think that knowing that our data on 135s and 136s is so high, I think that deserves attention as well. And I just wanted to know, Russell, when do we need to submit the bid or bids? What the deadline was? I'm sure. Sorry if I missed that detail.
At the moment, you're probably jumping ahead a little bit, only in the sense that at the moment, what I'm tasked to do is by the end of this month, I need to submit to my headquarters the ideas that are being put forward, or the proposals, as best as we can shape it. Following that, it's actually a different department that will deal with the bids. It won't be myself. If it were me, it wouldn't get anywhere. There's a specific staff in the centre that will deal with that. So I don't know the answer to that bit just yet. But of course, via Joe, we'll keep you up to speed with all of that. I think what we're concluding, and I still know a couple of people have got their hands up, but that if Joe's going to be the sort of spot for Haringey, which makes absolute sense, as I say, because I'll be meeting with Joe regularly. I have though also just included in the chat and I can see somebody who's left me their email as well, but I've just put my email there as well, so you can contact me directly as well. But I would suggest perhaps you can do that together with Joe or with Joe, and we'll stay in touch that way.
Russell, is it worth sorry, Anne. Russell, is it worth just giving colleagues a kind of an end date? Because I'm thinking around the 25th we'd need all the kind of ideas back, so that gives you time.
25th sounds good. Yeah.
All right, cool.
If we can minute that as the deadline, I suppose, of any kind of suggestions. We I mean, we don't need to have a full scope, but as much information so that I can at least understand what the gap is, what the need is. And I agree with Anne's point about impact. So we're not. I wish we were talking about £3 million just for Haringey. We're not, unfortunately. But it's a little bit of money, and I thought, what better way to introduce myself at the Haringey CSP and talk about available money. So we need, as I keep saying, let's ask for it. I'm not sure. I think there's one or two more hands.
Yeah, it's Beverly Tarka next.
Thanks very much, Chair. Beverly Tarka, Director for Adults and Health. Just once again, Russell, to add my thanks for the very comprehensive information that you've shared. I'm going to keep my points quite succinct because I'm conscious of time. There is something for me around prioritization and looking at cross-cutting themes in terms of the categorizations that you've illustrated. It may well be in there. I haven't had a chance to look at it closely, but I think if we're looking to prioritize where we need to focus intervention, that might be helpful. There's something also about the contributions around the offenders themselves in terms of what is needed. And, you know, the way we work here, as I'm sure you know, is looking to get those voices and contributions heard. So I think there's a really good foundation to build on in terms of that kind of consultative kind of co-production work. And that's why it's important to build on what we all already have. I'm just conscious of really tight timescales, but we are talking about a very small amount of money. So to go back to Anne's point about impact, it's really important, I think, that we take all those sort of issues into consideration. You know, the voices of offenders themselves, building on what we've got, and the cross-cutting themes across the various groups in terms of arriving at the outcome that we think might be most useful. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree with everything you've just said. So it makes sense to me, therefore, if there's an existing service where there has been some evaluation or impact surveys completed already, and where there's a gap within that particular service. So it's someone saying, you know, that's attending a service saying, oh, I wish there was this. That's the sort of thing, you know, if things have been highlighted along that train of thought, then that's perhaps something we can look at. So yeah, agree with everything you just said.
Thanks.
Thanks, Russell. Councillor Brotherson.
Yes, I just want to follow on. Cabinet Member for Children, Early Years, Children and Families. Yeah, it was interesting. And when you look across your tables, I mean, the things that really, all these things are interconnected. Mental health, ETE, lifestyle, thinking skills, all of those things, you know, I suppose, you know, they all link up. It seems to me, just following on from what Beverly said, actually, what Anne said, is that I think, given it's not a lot of money when you carve it up, and certainly not in year one with 500,000, is that we need to reflect here on what we think has worked really well across the different models we have, whether it's along youth justice, youth at risk programme, or Anne, I was thinking of the learning partnership as well. The model that we've implemented around the Haringey Learning Partnership and around alternative provision, albeit for a younger cohort, I think offers many lessons for us in working with people who certainly are at risk of falling into the criminal justice system. And the primacy of their educational achievement really does stand out, at least for me. I mean, I know we've got the counsellors around it and the social workers and the whole of that team around the young person. And I'm just thinking whether there's a way to apply some of that thinking, drawing in the adult learning service at House, I think has quite a good, you know, line on some of that, Anne and Beverly. I was just trying to think laterally, given that we don't have much money, but I do think when I was a magistrate, the level of illiteracy amongst people coming into court was enormous. And when you put people on community sensitive, every probation report really did say, more or less, pre-sentence report often had the same themes. But I think that we've got some really good ideas that are being developed here, particularly with the young people coming through the alternative provision, that we might think about how we can apply. I don't know if that's helpful, Anne, Beverly, Jackie and everyone else, but that's what strikes me.
A lot of the things you've just said there is things that I'm very passionate about as well. So I've led on prevention programs and things like that in the past. And the only thing I would say is just a reminder that this funding for this post would have to be for firstly 18 plus. And already been known to the criminal justice system. That's the only caveat around it. So it's got to be people that have been perhaps gone through the courts, been sentenced after a pre-sentence report, and they've been made subject to a community order or suspended sentence order, or they might be on license, having been released, and it's just a service that just a gap. And I know I've sort of flown in here to this meeting and news to Haringey, and I don't know Haringey at all. So that's why I thought I'd present it here. And I wasn't expecting that we'd come up with any solutions right now. And I know some of you have made some good suggestions, and I love it all. I really do. But yeah, we just need to do some thinking. I think we've set the deadline for, was it the 25th? I think that gives us a couple of weeks for, you know, to have some internal discussions. By all means, speak with Joe as well. You've got my contact details there as well. And we'll keep talking, and I hope, and then by the end of the month, I'm going to then submit a sort of a bit of a scope as to what something could look like, a service could look like in Haringey, and then we'll take it from there. And then I'm happy to obviously update at a later point.
Okay.
I saw a hand go up, and then it might have gone down again.
Yeah.
But,
Yes, that was me. I just wanted to respond to Councillor Brabozone's point that about the need for education and support. And yesterday, Councillor Brabazone, at your one-to-one, we had colleagues come to talk about Northumberland Park, and absolutely this, better use of community resources in this area. So, Joe, when we're looking at how to prioritise all the great need into this sum, if we can include that too. I know that Beverly, that so we can talk outside the meeting, and it is something that straddles adults and children's in a community of high need. But we may need to have a set of principles that helps us focus on this. My other thought was about hearing, the data and the statistics about the great need, and maybe at another meeting, colleagues, Hubert, it might be helpful to know have a sense of, just to remind ourselves of all the activities that are going into CSP to make a difference, because it's just a thought. I'll end there. Thank you. I know that we're pressed for time.
You want to comment quickly, then we have to conclude this item, or you're going to say?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I'm agreeing with Anne from the point of view. Hi, Russell. My name's Hubert Malcolm. I'm the AD for Stronger and Safer Communities, and Joe reports through to me. So, yeah, I think that can maybe be a future agenda item that I can talk to Naz about. Just, what is our combined resource across adults, community safety, and children's that go into this arena? I think that'd be welcomed. And I know Joe will be the spot. I'm particularly interested in the mental health aspect for me, especially coming out of lockdown. And we know that all the trauma that our young people have faced. But yeah, that's an ongoing conversation, Russell. So thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you.
I'm glad I've sparked some additional discussion. It sounds like it's going to take place.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Russell, for your presentation. Now we're going to move on to the next item, which is PANT campaign, which is so Anna Holland will present. Am I right?
You are. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anna. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. I nearly said good morning then, which is not true. I'm going back a few hours. My name's Anna Holland. I'm a consultant social worker with the NSPCC, and we have been talking with Haringey partners for a little while now about a PANTS campaign, which I will give you a little overview of. I'm really mindful of time. I'm mindful you've got a packed agenda, so I'll try and be as succinct as I can. You've got all the slides, so anything else you want to know about it, you can have a look through these, and I'll pop my email in at the end. But just in terms of framing, what would be really helpful for all of you to think about is that as you kind of go through the slide series, it would be great that we've got the kind of endorsement and support from community safety. I know I've spoken with a few of you already, but not as a whole partnership, and also filter some of the information through around the launch and some of the activities that we're offering through to colleagues, through to your teams, through to those you manage. And very, very welcome to come along to our launch, which is in March, and our familiarisation sessions for professionals. I'm afraid I don't come with the same promise of money as Russell just did, and we're certainly at the other end of the spectrum in terms of we're looking very much at early years, so children sort of preschool up to around 8 years old. But it's very much a kind of in-kind campaign. So certainly at the moment, what we're working with is NSPCC and colleagues from Haringey Partners delivering these activities, rather than, I'm not coming and asking for money. Is probably the best I can say compared to Russell's offer. So if I just share my slides very quickly to go through what a PANTS campaign is. If any of you have young children, work in schools or early years, grandchildren that have ever seen this at school, you may recognise Pantosaurus, who is the I suppose you'd call him a mascot of our campaign. You may know the song. If you don't, it is an earworm. You will never get it out of your head if you look at it on YouTube, but it's worth a look. So in terms of what the campaign actually is, very much the aim is to kind of provide support, awareness raising to those either caring for or working with children who are around age 3.5, 4 to 8 years old around sexual abuse, and to support, I guess, increase the number of parents and carers and professionals that feel able to have conversations with children around privacy, around their bodies, around there always being someone to talk to if they're worried, sad, scared, upset about something, and to provide messages directly to children in an age appropriate way around their bodies, around there always being someone to talk to if they're worried. And it's based on the underwear rule, which came out of Europe, but really came to fruition, if you like, with the NSPCC in the wake of Jimmy Savile and the inquiries around Jimmy Savile and the subsequent concerns that came out of that, and that actually there was a really high percentage of parents saying that actually all the media coverage around that had certainly made them think more about sexual abuse, but didn't make it any easier to know how to find the words or how to have the conversations or how to even think about it in their own lives. But it was a very, very high on people's kind of agenda and concern. And actually, we know that 1 in 3 children who have been sexually abused by an adult didn't tell anyone else at the time. So really high proportions of children who are experiencing this abuse not feeling able, not feeling safe, not knowing how to find the words or who to talk to about what had happened. And equally, in terms of campaigns that might be quite familiar to children that have grown up over the past sort of 20, 30, 40, 50 years, we knew that there could be quite an emphasis on stranger danger, but that didn't match up with the fact that such a high percentage of children were actually abused by someone they knew that was known to them. So it was really wanting to introduce the idea of this to parents and carers in a way that wasn't frightening to them, didn't feel overwhelming, didn't have the opposite effect of people sort of shutting down and thinking, I can't even think about this, but really helped with some quite practical tools, resources, conversation starters, so that those working with and looking after children felt really confident of where to go if they were worried, and children had a clear message as well around, I guess, primarily talking to adults, talking to people that were safe for them and felt safe if there's anything going on that is upsetting them. And I guess that's wider than abuse. I think that's an important message, no matter what it is that's going on for a child. So parents, understandably, and professionals might be thinking, oh my goodness, combining the idea of sexual abuse with, with that early year settings feels overwhelming. Why on earth would I be talking with children that young around this? What do I even say? What if I get it wrong and actually cause further harm or worry? So it was very much about kind of supporting parents and carers to have that conversation in a really simple set of rules, which I'm showing you here. So private are private, always remember your body belongs to you, no means no, talk about secrets that upset you, and speak up, someone can help. I make that sound really simple. As a social worker that's worked in and managed sexual abuse settings, I completely appreciate that this is very much at the awareness raising end of the spectrum, if you like. But I think the more we can raise awareness of the issues out there, of where to go for help, what to look out for, what to do if people are worried, then we're hopefully impacting what we're seeing later down the line in terms of children that are needing to be referred into services, whether that be children's services, police, etc. I won't show this because I'm mindful of time, and I won't go through these in great
I don't know if it frozen for me, but is everyone okay? Can everyone else see
I think
Anna?
it's
Yeah, all of us,
frozen.
I think
Yeah,
it's frozen for.
it's frozen.
Oh, yeah.
Just give a couple of seconds. Anna, can you hear us?
I might have to throw her out of the meeting, I'm afraid. Okay. Hopefully she'll come back. Anna, if you're there, I'm just going to remove you from the meeting for a second.
Okay. Should we just give a couple of seconds for Anna? If not, then we'll move into the next item on the agenda. Anna is here.
Hello
Welcome back,
again.
Anna.
Sorry about that. Realised I was suddenly talking to myself. Maybe because my PowerPoint was up, I'll try talking through it without sharing maybe. But yeah, just to say that it's been evaluated in terms of impact. You know, huge increase in parents and carers reporting that they felt much more confident in having some of these conversations with their children, and equally knowing where to go for help and advice. So to break it down in terms of what this means for Haringey, as I said, we've met as a steering group for the past several months with colleagues from police, health, education, social care, community and voluntary sector organisations, as well as NSPCC colleagues, to really think about how we might deliver this for Haringey. And we wanted to do a kind of added extra, if you like, to bring in some of the DfE non-statutory guidance that's been published around safeguarding children in out-of-school settings, because we were really mindful that actually it's relevant for settings that are working with early years children, in terms of them feeling safe about their policies and procedures, them feeling they know where to go to with concerns if they're worried about sexual abuse, but equally for parents and carers to be mindful around some of the guidance and things they might be looking for if children are attending these settings, because they're not necessarily governed by the same kind of safeguarding process, if you like, as organisations that might be run by local authority or education. So, for example, if someone is a private tutor or coaching sports or music privately, but not under a kind of regulated body, we felt that actually this might be an opportunity to have some of those conversations with organisations, with professionals, and with parents and carers. So in terms of next steps, in the PowerPoint, it's got a timeline for you, which you can have a look at for those that are interested in more detail. We'll be holding a professional launch event on the 17th of March. It will be virtual. My teams will absolutely be working and fully functioning at that point, because we're not having this again. I have 10 computers as a backup. But we are having a professionals launch on the 17th of March. Very happy to forward invites to anyone that would be interested in attending, and I'll forward details so that you can circulate to teams and colleagues. The next stage of that is really to run familiarisation sessions for professionals. So this really gives us a chance to spend an hour to an hour and a half going through the resources in the campaign, where it came from, the kind of messaging that we know is helpful for professionals if they're delivering this in a conversation with parents, or in a stay and play session, or in a nursery or school assembly. So they feel really kind of confident that they feel they know what they're doing, and they know where the resources are, they know where to go next. And then during the summer months, so sort of June onwards, we'll also look at community opportunities within Haringey to also deliver events to parents, carers, and wider community. So ideas for that, very welcome. Feel free to pop me an email. I know a couple of head teachers I've spoken to already who the idea of Pantosaurus coming to their school is met with great joy. We've got book resources, which I said to Bev this morning, there's a big box of Pantosaurus storybooks behind my desk at work, which are absolutely reserved for Haringey. So it might be that there's some stay and play sessions or some library sessions that we can go in and kind of, read the story so that children and parents can become familiar that way. And we'll really look at evaluating impact. So, you know, increase in knowledge and confidence, you know, pulling stats maybe on the impact it's had on at a social care end, the types of cases that are being referred in, and what those numbers and stats and data look like. But it's very much a campaign for Haringey with Haringey. So the idea is that once this has been run, and so we'll run to the end of financial year 2023, skipped a couple of years due to COVID, but 2023. And the idea being that then Haringey have all the resources, they've got the PowerPoints, they've got the workshops, they've got the books that we will have given, so that, and there's, you know, a cohort of skilled champions in Haringey that have been skilled up in pants, that feel confident in delivering it and can you know, can deliver it again and again and again in their settings, without, you know, needing us. You know, you can absolutely come back to us if you're like, oh, where was that again, Anna? But, you know, without needing us to run the whole thing, it can just be kind of embedded, which is the aim really of the campaign. So that's my whistle stop tour. Thank you for bearing with while Teams rebooted itself. Any questions, Anne?
Thank you very much, Anna. Really do appreciate this, and it reminds me of when I was young. There used to be sort of songs, you know, those who are my age or a bit younger and older remember the Green Cross Code. There were songs and rhymes that still stay with us today that helped us stay safe, you know, and they became part of our play. And so it really is good to have a common set of language for children and young people and families and parents and teachers and all in their network, sort of to be able to raise these very difficult issues. I did want to speak about children who are with disabilities, and whether there will be something that might even be bespoke for them, because sometimes they do have people who are close to them delivering personal care, but we also know that this group of children and young people are amongst the most vulnerable in our community. I wanted to stop there. Thank you very much, and I really look forward to hearing the song being sung by little ones as I visit schools and settings and so on. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just to give context on that, certainly we would very much be mindful of the higher incidences of abuse, that especially sexual abuse, that do occur for children with a disability. We have the director of Markfield who sits on our steering group, so working closely with them, and you know, it will be really fantastic to liaise with colleagues within the local authority as well that are working with children with a disability. There are some additional resources in the campaign around SEN provision, how we might get some of this information across to children who might be deaf, might be non-verbal. So yeah, very, very important, I think, that we work to make it inclusive for those children and their families.
Okay. Thank you, Anna. So I got Will next.
Hi there, thank you. And I'm Will. I'm the Director of Public Health in Haringey. For some reason, this is familiar. I've got a child of that age, but also I think we have pediatric doctors in the public health team, so I might have heard about from them. So my question kind of builds on what Anne said. We're a really diverse population in Haringey, so just kind of ensuring that this is accessible and meaningful to all of the different communities. It sounds like you've got a steering group going there, and then the example you gave was kind of Jimmy Savile, but of course a lot of this can happen in the domestic setting with people who are either in the family or known to the family. So just a question about how it's kind of mindful and to that aspect.
Yeah, I think when PANTS was developed, it was right in the wake of there being a huge media focus because of Jimmy Savile, or because of what had come out about allegations and disclosures there around sexual abuse, and parents and carers feeling very worried and ill-equipped about, you know, what to do. It was a big worry for them, but there wasn't a lot of sense of, well, what do I do about this being so worrying? But you know, we know that the highest percentage of sexual abuse occurs with someone that is either in the family or is well known to a child or family. So the campaign doesn't have resources that look at particular who who abusers might be, but it's just giving very kind of generic messages around, you know, no matter what, you can talk to someone if something's worrying you. But really happy if anyone wants to email me to kind of point you in the right direction, or you know, spend some time talking through what that actually looks like in practice.
So I have Heather next. Does that answer your question? Yep, Heather.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Really interesting campaign. Not necessarily a question from me, but more of an offer of support, perhaps from our team.
Yeah.
So I manage the event team, and essentially that's split into a few strands. One of it being education, and another being community engagement, specifically targeting BAME communities. But I guess what will be interesting maybe for you is that we've set up a supplementary schools forum. So each quarter, our team meet with supplementary schools in the borough. Obviously, it's really difficult to meet with all of them because, you know, they're underreported, that sort of thing, they're not registered. But what our team are doing at the moment is kind of doing a little bit of investigatory work around the borough, seeing what supplementary schools are out there, and really trying to build upon sort of our list and our membership. Each quarter, we really sort of would like guest speakers, or any resources, or anything that would be particularly helpful, because the main kind of remit of the Supplementary Schools Forum isn't necessarily prevent and counter extremism, it's more about safeguarding, supporting sort of our members to uphold safeguarding duties and just do the best that they can for children. So yeah, our kind of service and opportunity is there if you would like to do some collaboration. I've jotted your email down, so we can speak outside of this meeting if you want.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, I will very much take you up on that offer, Heather. Thank you.
I got you, but next.
Thank you, Anna. Nice to meet you. I know that we've been discussing you coming to the board for a little while. So really just a plug. I've listened to the Pants campaign and listened to it with my youngest, to be honest with you. And I think it's just a fantastic resource. So I'm not sure if you can put the link in the chat, but I think it'd be really good for everyone really to listen to the campaign and to encourage that dissemination. And thank you to Heather as part of the team to support this. I think it's a fantastic resource going forward, and I think colleagues have mentioned some of the other challenges that we have got that we can work around. So thank you very much for coming to the board today. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I'll pop as I dial out the meeting, I will pop the YouTube link to the song. We've got a little video with comments from parents as well, which we'll use in our presentations, but I think it's quite interesting to watch if you've not quite so familiar with the campaign, and also our schools and teaching resources, so people that are working directly in kind of early years or other settings can have a nose around. But as I say, you know, feel free to book onto one of our familiarisation workshops, because we'll take you through that in much more depth with a lot more time than I've got here this afternoon. But I'll pop them in the link for anyone that wants to go and do a bit of a pre-reading or pre-homework, if you like, before that.
Right, I don't see any more questions, so thank you, Anna, for your presentation.
No problem. Thanks so much for having me along, and I'll pop those links in the chat.
Great.
As we go.
Thank you. So item 9, community tensions. Heather?
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor. I'm just uploading my apologies.
Anna, if you can stop sharing.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I don't think I can upload
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Okay, can everybody see that? Fantastic. So thank you, Councillor. As mentioned, my name is Heather Hutchins. I'm the Strategic Lead for Communities. So essentially my role is to have strategic and operational oversight of the Prevent strategy in Haringey. So I'm just going to quickly whiz through this presentation, a bit conscious of time. Hopefully it will give you a really great understanding of what we mean by community tensions. The project, just to note, has been running for just over 1 year. So this is almost like a relaunch, if you like. It will give you an overview of our monitoring process, and then of course our ask from the CSP, and then any future steps. So just very quickly, just to define community tensions, what do we actually mean by a community tension? So a community tension or a community dynamic are essentially the makeup of our community, its differences. that when sort of inflamed or clashing can potentially lead to disorder, threaten the peace or the stability of communities. So some of the knock-on effects of the elevation of a community tension might be the rise of fear, mistrust, anxiety, violence, hate crime in whole or part of the community. So as we know, community tensions might develop from a variety of causes. It might be around the build-up of tension between communities. It might be against particular institutions, groups, political figures, pieces of political legislation, that sort of thing. And community tensions, as you know, might be based on kind of reality or perceived events. So, for example, recently community tensions involving COVID-19, it's a real medical crisis, but actually the perception by some is that it was either fake or made up by governments or other countries or other religions were responsible for that. And a knock-on effect of that was, unfortunately, we saw the rise in sort of hate directed to either Chinese communities, Jewish communities, all stemming from those really inaccurate conspiracy theories. So community tensions can be based on sort of public information, can be based on fear, political movements, civil unrest, prejudices. Community tensions can be influenced internally by the community or influenced by external factors. They may develop over a long period of time or be inflamed by a particular spark in the wider political sphere, which will obviously lead to sort of community disorder. And again, another recent example of what we've seen in Haringey is that spark or spike in anti-Semitic graffiti in relation to the conflict last spring. So that's kind of a very broad overview of what we mean by community tensions. Community tensions actually may also arise as a result of the absence of the following factors. So an absence of a common vision, a sense of belonging, where individuals feel a little bit misplaced or feel like they're having a lack of trust or feel like, I don't know, a lack of loyalty or love, that sort of thing in the community. They also may arise in the absence of appreciation for diversity and identity. When people don't feel valued or feel like their background or circumstances is being depleted. Also, they kind of arrive in the absence of the drive for equality. So when people from different backgrounds don't have similar life opportunities, this is where we might see conflict. And then opportunities to build sort of positive relationships with others. If one or more of those following sort of drivers or points are missing, there's an increased sort of probability of the emergence of this us and them sort of in-group, out-group, I'm right, you're wrong, binary thinking. And this potentially is, well, essentially is the foundation of extremist sort of narrative and ideology. So obviously we need to do everything that we can to mitigate this us and them polarization of communities. So what's the purpose of community tensions? So essentially it enables us to be the eyes and ears of the community. It enables us to better understand those community dynamics and identify actual tensions that may arise or emerge from periods of instability. But actually it also helps us to be on the ball. So it helps us to sort of identify community tensions. It helps us to nip them in the bud and remove them in the first instance. Community tensions are built into our risk assessment, our prevent sort of situational risk assessment. So this means that if we're actually on the ball with tensions, we know what's happening in our community, we're able to deploy sort of adequate and appropriate resources. So that's resources in terms of staff, projects, short, medium and long term. In Prevent, we commission projects each year, and these projects are in response and based upon risks identified. I guess the bedrock of the purpose of our tension monitoring is to build upon community cohesion. Again, if we're on the ball with tensions, we can work with the communities to de-escalate. And that's just a lovely photo of one of our face-to-face multi-faith forum meetings. And this is sort of the type of meeting or the perfect opportunity for us to sit down in partnership to discuss sort of the community tensions and look at workable solutions. So what type of tensions are we actually monitoring? Now, I've kind of already gone through this, so I won't go through all the list. But the most important sort of takeaway from this presentation is actually we don't want reporting via community tensions to replace any reports to the police. So reporting to community tensions should be in collaboration or a bolt-on to police reporting, especially when we think about those tensions that are actually crossed over into the criminal sort of aspect and criminal activity. So these are just a few examples of some of the community tensions that have been reported to us over the past 6 months. As you will see, it's a range of sort of criminal and pre-criminal tensions. Again, we've encouraged everybody to report these to the police, and if they haven't been reported to the police, then we've reported them ourselves. As you can see, political tensions relating to legacy or memorial days, tensions related to racism are associated with extreme groups and conspiratorial thinking. So that kind of image in the middle there, that's about kind of anti-vaccines, and we saw a spike probably only a few months ago, and it might still be going on to this day of, although it has subsided, of different anti-vax groups kind of picketing outside of schools. Again, just to give you a bit of an example of how many tensions we're receiving per week, per day, per month. Since the project kind of kicked off last year in January, we've seen 84 tensions, averaging at about 7 per month. We've naturally had falls in the reports and the referrals to us over the summer, and we also have spikes, and these spikes are generally after major sort of incidents. So as an example, we've recently had a spike in graffiti around the kind of Wood Green Lanes area in relation to political prisoners in Turkey. So we've seen a handful of these incidents, and we've been linking up with partners in the police, waste management, as well as kind of businesses in the area to tackle and to ultimately get it removed to de-escalate. So what are the roles and responsibilities of the Tension Monitoring and Strategy Group? So I've kind of described the operational aspect of the tension monitoring process, but we've also got a strategic group that sits down once a quarter. It's chaired by UBIT, and its primary purpose is to share information that's been reported and coordinate a multi-agency response to intervene or support where appropriate and where needed. Community tensions, as I've already said, they feed into our local situational present risk assessment. We use these to inform decisions around projects, deploying resources. Another role and responsibility is an opportunity to onward report when the community haven't. So, for example, recently we've done some onward reporting to the waste management team, to the police, to the hate crime lead, that sort of thing, which is very useful for us. And the umbrella objective is essentially to have a consistency when it comes to managing tensions that arise. So that's consistency with all partners in the police as well as the council. So what's the ask from the CSP? So just as a very brief recap, the work around community tensions will be used to guide our approach to intervention, short, medium and long term, and provide information for our risk assessment as well as commissioning projects. It'll also be used to inform and support the management of critical incidents and promote community cohesion. We believe that actually when we build mainstream voices and community contacts, when responding to a major incident, this will provide sort of support in communities to essentially drown out extremism and those extremist voices. Community tension monitoring does support a number of ongoing work streams and projects across all sort of departments in the council. And what we do ask from the CSP, it's fairly kind of easy ask, is just to support the monitoring of community tensions, support the approach taken and a commitment to share with partners, just so we're able to mitigate some of those sort of short and long-term impacts. So how can you support? So you can support by reporting any tensions using the following tool, and obviously I will hopefully be able to send this out with the minutes. Essentially, we have a tool that's uploaded to monday.com. The tool is fully remote, so you can use it on a desktop, but you can also use it on your mobile phone if you're out and about and you want to take photographs in situ. But what we want from this ESP is to just encourage all frontline staff to report what they are seeing and hearing. And if for some reason the form can't be used, then staff are always more than welcome to come to our team and just report in person or over the phone. The form is really quick to use. It only takes, less than 5 minutes to fill out, and the report comes straight to us in our team. So in terms of next steps, we've identified a few next steps to kind of take this project into a more strategic sort of outlook. One of them is about training. So we want to continue our trainings, our briefings to key sort of council members and external partners, including businesses in Haringey. We really want to support or strengthen our sort of package of support to those community groups and faith leads who do unfortunately fall victim or who are impacted by tensions, particularly those who are targeted on more than one occasion. So trying to think about what that support might look like and coming from a sort of partnership, multi-agency like vision. We want to develop and implement engagement plans, again, just to build and improve those sort of relationships with the community, so they're more likely to report tensions or incidents as and when they see them to us. They can put a face to a name and they know who we are, so they feel a bit more comfortable and confident to report to our team. And then we, at the moment, I believe that we're really great at sharing information with our police partners, as well as others, the SOs, as well as faith leads. But we might be able to kind of think about a process that can make it more streamlined and a bit more efficient. So again, one of the next steps is to have a think about this, put our heads together and implement a sort of borough initiative to share any intelligence that's coming through from the council to the police and vice versa. So that's about it. I will stop sharing and then can take some questions.
Thank you, Heather. So is there any questions? Can't see any virtual hands. Oh yeah, Hubert.
Thank you, Councillor Dogan. Thank you, Heather. So really just to emphasise what Heather has been talking about, I think it's important for us as a board and as an organisation to really galvanise the support of our community and professionals in terms of their eyes and ears. In the borough, we've had lots of anniversaries, lots of information that flows through to us about community tensions that we could perhaps prevent, put some resources in, put some outreach in, really to support the community and to stop incidents happening. You also know that sometimes people are very reluctant to report things to the police. So part of this also is third-party reporting. Heather, the team can always bring things back to the police colleagues at our strategic meetings that we have weekly. So really, it's a big plea for everyone around the table. Please share our tensions monitoring, really help us really to look, do some horizon scanning and really to look in the future and try and prevent some of these problems and issues, but also to support our community at a time that has been very challenging for them over the last few years. So thank you again, Heather, and thank you, Councillor Dogan.
Thank you, Hubert. Is there a social campaign about this, Heather, that we can actually share through our social medias and so forth? I think that would be really helpful to reach out to many individuals and communities as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. At present, there's nothing, but that's something that's on our sort of wish list to work alongside communications to be able just to kind of put the link out. Currently, what we do is every Monday, our community engagement officer sends the link to all of her sort of partners in the community, the Multi-Faith Forum, internal partners. So it's going out to quite a lot of sort of internal, external partners, but not necessarily Joe public, not necessarily the eyes and ears, the residents. So that would be something to think about.
And as you know that we have network groups for underrepresented communities such as Turkish and Kurdish community, Somalian networks coming up nicely. So I think it would be really useful to share that information.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks, Councillor.
Thanks. I've got Jackie next.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Heather. That really good presentation. I'm sure my colleague Bev is thinking the same as me, and it would be great to get you to come along to one of our future Ask the AD sessions, because we have really good representation from the Children's Directorate who attend, who would be really welcome in this and knowing how to report it. So I'll be in touch separately to arrange for you to come along to one of those.
Okay, thank you, Jackie.
Thanks.
Got Will Morris next.
I thank you, Heather. Really good presentation and really good to collect information. So what struck me was just the breadth of areas this could kind of capture, right from hate crime to sort of antisocial behaviour. And I suppose from a health point of view, those things can have a really detrimental impact on health and well-being. So my question was just more around from what we can do to prevent, and will there be any implications? Because we've had quite a lot of additional workforce out in the borough as a result of COVID, which probably in some ways helped to identify non-COVID tensions as well. Do we feel like we're equipped to do that preventative work and identify sort of problems early?
Absolutely. I feel like if we do recognise a trend in the borough, we bring that trend to the strategic group, and that's where partners kind of around the table can think about those sort of solutions and what we can do. In our team, we've got quite a lot of resilience. We've got somebody that has a focus on education, community engagement, faith engagement, and BAME communities. So again, if we find something that's particular unsettling or kind of like something that's coming up on one or more of occasion, then we've always got those sort of different outlets to be able to either raise awareness via or send messages or work with sort of external partners. So for example, teachers or members of the community or the faith leads. So it's definitely something that we would be able to sort of look into and work collaboratively, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Heather. Is there any more questions? I don't see any hands up. Is there any virtual hands? No. Okay, so thank you, Heather, and I'll move on to the next item, which is item 10, Haringey, your choice proposal. I think Beverly Hendrick is presenting. Okay.
Yes, I am, Chair. Thanks very much.
Good to see you, Beverly, after a while.
It's nice to see you too. I'm hoping that you are seeing the screen that I'm sharing.
Not yet.
And while I'm loading the screen,
yeah, it's just come up.
Wonderful, thanks, Jackie. I just wanted to take this time to introduce two of my colleagues that have joined me for today's presentation. Brigitte, do you want to just introduce yourself and talk about your role?
My name is Brigitte Squire. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm actually helping to oversee the Your Choice program in Haringey. But my colleague Kirsten is actually more doing the hands-on work. But so I supervise her and try to think together about setting it all up. But I think Kirsten will be the person that will be on operational, be more involved in the project.
She will. So Kirsten, do you want to introduce yourself before we start the presentation?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Kirsten McCallum. I'm a forensic psychologist, and I'm going to be the clinical lead for the Your Choice programme and the trainer. So we're kind of at the process or the point at the moment of getting on board our coaches, and then they'll do the training, and hopefully we can get them out delivering the programme. Or yeah, so it's just trying to get to grips with all the setup at the moment, as Brigitte said.
Thank you so much, Brigitte and Kirsten. And so this item is being brought to CSP1 to draw your attention to the fact that Haringey has been selected by MOPAC to deliver the Your Choice programme over the next 2.5 years. The current funding for the first year equates to £200,000 with additional funding for the final 6 months. We have been given an indication of what that funding would look like, but we wait to announce it when we sign on the final dotted line. The Your Choice programme has been designed because of the feedback and the research provided through the London Innovation Alliance that really highlights for some of our young people across London. It's a pan-London initiative that highlights the fact that many of them aren't accessing the the conventional therapeutic resources, and it's an attempt to try and train up our practitioners who have the most contact and interface with young people at risk of extrafamiliar harm and violence, to and accept the point that many of them, that the paradigm that children can be referred to CAMS or other forms of therapeutic support isn't the likely forums that our children that we're most concerned about will experience. And so the CBT Your Choice programme is designed to work through existing practitioners, strengthen their relationships, and more importantly, strengthen the skills that those practitioners have to help our young people and their families make different choices. And this slide sets out some of the research findings from the London Innovation Alliance, referred to as the LIAL. It sets a worrying picture across London, not just particular to Haringey. You would have heard in other presentations in previous CSP what our pitch, the detail of what serious youth violence is doing for children in Haringey, and this is endorsed by the research findings of LIAL. Just for time, I won't go through each point. Our project partners are children and young people, are our colleagues from the North Area Violence Reduction Unit, Family Psychology Mutual, Brandon Centre, Parent Champions, Haringey Gold, Youth Justice Service, and indeed our schools. The Your Choice programme across London has given an indication for the boroughs where we have £10 million, and I've told you a little bit about what Haringey's current allocation is, so I won't go into the detail here. There will be some work with the Anna Freud Centre to evaluate the effectiveness of this approach, and at a later date we'll come back with what the evaluation findings. I'll move on from the detail of this slide, but essentially what that slide was trying to set out is that we were expected to work with 100 young people over the course of the pilot. So there's a tier 1 area that we will be producing monthly reports to evidence the impact of the work that we've been doing. We are hoping that we're in the process now, as Kirsten was referring to earlier, that we are selecting 20 practitioners from across the system: Early Help, Youth Justice, Safeguarding, Haringey Gold, and we've started to have submissions from a number of experienced and long-standing practitioners who are keen to enhance their skills and enter the 5 days of training and then work further with Kirsten and others to deliver the programme over the 2.5 years designated to do the work. The closing date for the expression of interest is Friday, and so one of the things that we're asking CSP to do is to have a think within your agencies. If there is any of your practitioners that you want to ask to have a conversation with us, we'd be more than willing to talk to them before the closing day of 5 o'clock on Friday. The referral pathway set out here, and essentially it suggests that we want to hold the coordination, identification of the 100 young people that we're going to serve, age 11 to 17 in the first year, through the Edge of Care, Social Care's Edge of Care panel. This is, we also have a pre-MACE exploitation prevention panel that is closely aligned to the youth at risk strategy, the early help strategy, and our Edge of Care approach. The intended outcomes are set out here. Really want to start to work with the North Area Violence Reduction Unit and the youth at risk strategies aims to reduce repeated serious violence, reduce youth knife crime, and to start to impact the disproportionality of the children from Black and ethnic minority communities who are overly represented in some of our data. We want to, of course, reduce the misuse of substances and overall improve opportunities for children and young people who we are concerned about and are risk or on the cusp of risk from serious youth violence. the second, this slide here goes on to talk about some of our relay and overlay some of the other outcomes we're hoping to achieve, and by using the CBT approach, the tools from the CBT approach, we hope to help children, their families, and those in their network make different choices. The tools, and Kirsten and Bridget might come and talk a little bit more in detail about what the benefits of the CBT tool. But the tools and the training will be delivered to all 20 of our designated practitioners. They will have regular clinical supervision, and this will be in addition to their agency's supervision. And we thought it was important for that reason to bring it here, because it does require a degree of commitment for all of our agencies where our practitioners are identified or selected to work on this program. We took a sample, and it was really important to us in terms of developing our approach in Haringey. So we took a sample of children who had been reported missing from home or care. And some of the things they told us as you can see on the screen. One young person talked about the need to smoke every day, because this is smoking cannabis, as it helps them with their stress. They said they would like to learn to talk more and how to deal with their stress without resorting to the use of cannabis. There are others in this room might talk about the correlation between the use of cannabis and crime in Haringey. One young person told us that emotions are pointless, and so young person indicated that they smoke six to seven times a day, but they would meet with their current workers in the agency that's engaged with him if they helped him to cope with their stress. They expressed concerns around how the clinical setting of PAMS, there's a wariness, they're not confident about it, and they're not sure that it actually helps them and the peer group that they associate with. They talked about their frustrations and feeling angry, especially towards parents, and feel that their parents don't trust them, and they want to learn desperately wanted to know how to better communicate with their parents and those in their family settings. So this is a really quick trot through, but what we wanted to do today is ask CSP there's a your choice pledge that we're asking all of the agencies where your practitioners are selected to sign, and that really gives a commitment as best we can to enable the practitioners to participate in the training and the clinical supervision, to support us with the data collection that will be gathered through the Edge of Care panel, and to promote the identification of the young people known to your agencies. And I'll pause there. That comes to the end of those sets of slides, if there is any questions that people want to put to us.
Thank you, Beverly, for the presentation. I'm just looking at my list if there's any hands up virtually. Oh, yeah, I got a couple. So I got Anne first, then Councillor Brotherson. Anne?
Thank you very much, Councillor. Just taking myself off of mute there. I just want to sort of really welcome this work. I want to give a thank you to Beverly, Kirsten and Bridget for the presentation today. I'm really encouraged that this has already engaged our young people and is taking note of what they're saying works for them and the approaches that they want. I think it's so important too that we work with their families. I'm really pleased about the extent of this and the investment, because it's a foundation for us to begin to make change. So I just want to say that I really support this work. We've already, Bev, I'm not sure that you mentioned this, already taken this to some of our head teachers yesterday so that we socialize this widely, so we get that engagement. And we really want this to, if we can, be it's standalone, but we really want it to be valued so that we support those young people in all ways that we can to make difference and have that impact that that we all want to see in their lives. So I'm fully in support of this program. Thank you.
Okay, I got Councillor Brotherson next.
Yeah, thanks, Bev. I missed how much money the funding was, so if you could just say that at the end again, that'd be appreciated. But the question I wanted to ask you was about how this overlaps with the work being done on Stop and Search. At the last sentence of the last slide, partners including the police to support the identification of young people. And since we're talking about vulnerable group and the ages 11 to 17 in this first cohort, it strikes me that there must be some sort of overlap with some of the research and the work you've been doing around Stop and Search to try and use Stop and Search in that more preventative way. So I would really appreciate it if you could talk about how those two things link up. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Brabazon. So to your first question, the funding confirmed for this first cohort and year is 200,000
Right.
with the potential, and I think that is, as I say, we just need to finalise the signatures on the grant approvals for the full programme is £300,000. Is Haringey's allocation.
A year or
no,
a
in
year
total,
or
in
total
for 2.5 years, £300,000.
Right. So in relation to my point about the link with the Stop and Search work,
there is a correlation, Councillor Brabazon. So behind the scenes, there's a lot of work that's happened to build our relationship with the police and secure the detailed information from the work that we're doing around identifying and doing our analysis of what needs to change in the system. We will be able to identify the children who are at risk of youth crime through the Stop and Search piece of work and channel them through the Edge of Care panel to our partners and our practitioners.
well, yes, that's what I was thinking, because it seems to me there's a natural progression here, and a lot of such useful evidence and data, and in linking with the police, that is such a strong thing. Reversing a negative thing to a positive thing is what we want.
And it's fair to say that not every child that is stopped and searched will qualify for your choice, but if by bringing the needs to the Edge of Care panel, we're able to support the families through the menu of interventions that will be made available.
Excellent, thank you.
Right, I got Tim next.
Thank you. Tim Miller, Assistant Director for Joint Commissioning between Haringey Council and North Central London CCG. I really welcome this. I think it's great to see enhanced psychological skills and practitioners working with young people at risk. So really good to see. And to an ask and an invite, if I may. So an invitation, it'd be really great. Perhaps for Kirsten or Bridget to come to the Children and Young People's Mental Health provide a reference group where all the voluntary sector and statutory teams working in and around CAMS and mental health and wellbeing meet and share practice for you to talk about your work. I think it'd be really great to establish links with that network. And it'd be really great to capture your insights from young people about the issues they have with current services, as we're really trying to capture those voices of young people in informing our work. So, thank you.
I don't know. Kirsten, Bridget, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, I understand it's not.
So at this point.
No, I think it would be good to establish a link with the local CAMH service, and yeah, that would be good. I think Kirsten will do mainly all the intensive supervision of the staff, and so if she can develop some connection, that would be good.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So Councillor Dogan, that's our presentation for this afternoon.
Thank you, Beverly. Thank you very much. I don't see any more hands, so I will move on to the next item in the agenda. So it's item 11, Outreach Recruitment Team. So I understand that Debbie will be presenting.
I will be. Thank you, Councillor. Could I share my screen, please?
Yeah, Beverly, if you can stop sharing, that will be helpful.
Lovely, thank you. So, afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. It's the first time I've been here, so obviously we'll answer any questions that you have. Really wanted to give you an overview of the work that we're doing across Haringey, and also sort of share with you some of the good work that we are doing. I can say we have got funding, so that might hopefully perk up ears. So it's going to be a very quick run through, but as I say, I'll take questions at the end. So the team arrived at the end of September last year. Consists of myself and a sergeant and 3 PCs. I'm the outreach lead, so I kind of do the strategic work. I'm an ex-cop. I retired nearly 2 years ago. I know, I don't look old enough, thank you. But I retired nearly 2 years ago, and for my last 4 years of service, I was an inspector leading on recruitment from underrepresented backgrounds. So a bit of experience, but obviously here to learn as well, because it's a different landscape. This is not a knee-jerk temporary measure by MOPAC. These are permanent posts. So the investment is permanent. And the reason we're here is because digital marketing has been successful in delivering volume of police officers, but not the diversity that we need, from, as you can see. So we're here to build confidence. We want to break down barriers. We want to myth bust. And we want to tell people about what opportunities there are in the Met, because there's still, you know, the myths around, you know, you need a degree to join the police. It's not true. You can only come in and you can only do shift work. You can only do uniform. Again, we're here to have those conversations with people and perhaps open their eyes a bit around the opportunities that are available. And unless you've got, say, a member of your family or a neighbour or a friend in the police, it's really difficult to have those conversations. So again, that's what we're here for. We're here to talk to people and get them to really make an informed choice as to whether policing is for them. The way we're doing this is we have a model that we work towards. Once a month, we have a 4-day street event, and that is actually this week. So we start tomorrow in Wood Green High Road, like we did in October, which is on the screen at the moment. I have to say it's actually quite a really good fun event. We had the 4-day event in October. We spoke to thousands of people, and I think I mentioned last night at the AAG we only had 2 negative comments out of everybody we spoke to. So the engagement was really good. We do have a crime prevention stand as well, so that draws in people for different reasons, but again, really good for engagement. We're there for the next 4 days, 10 till 5. So we will bring partners to these street events. So for tomorrow, it's National Apprenticeship Week. So we've got Faradon coming, the Apprenticeships advisor from Haringey Works. We've got Spurs Foundation coming, we've got LFB coming, MOPAC are coming down, we've got police cadets. We've also got Robin Wilkinson coming down, who is Cressida Dick's head of corporate services. So again, it's a good mix of people that you can come down and talk with. As well as the big event, we have pop-up events. So for example, we've done IKEA, we've done Tottenham Hale, Edmonton Green, and for us, we need the footfall to put our resources into, but we will link in to see where these the high crime, low trust areas are. So again, some of those areas have been quite high in crime for us, so we've been trying to match those areas with some really good police presence. So the people that we sign up, as you can see, there's a QR code. We sign them up and they come onto our talent base. From there, we invite them to community venues and we have face-to-face insight sessions. So this is when you can have those in-depth conversations. We have officers from many different backgrounds on those sessions. So we have detectives, we have black officers, Asian officers, senior officers. Again, as many people can come in and give their experience of policing. And these are genuinely honest conversations that you can have at those events. There is a presentation. We talk about the recruitment process, hints and tips for success, eligibility, entry paths. But the main crux of that is the networking. Again, it's that opportunity to come in and talk to us about a career in the Met. In Haringey, for those sessions, we're using the Alavie Centre in Wood Green. It's a Saturday morning. Again, you're more than welcome to pop down and see how we're delivering those. We also do a school event. So what I mean by that is one of these sessions about at school in Enfield, just to split the area up a little bit, and also a digital event if people can't get out to come and talk to us. Again, one each a month. The attendance on that is really good. I mean, people who come to us will say, you know, I'm thinking about becoming a cop. These are career changers rather than your 18-year-olds. Really, you know, valuable to be police officers at that age as a career changer, who will say, you know, I had a lady come up to me and say, I'm a solicitor and I'm thinking about becoming a police officer, but someone to talk to rather than just a faceless online chat. So again, really good to have those conversations with people. When we started in September, we took quite a strategic approach to this. We didn't want to go out scattergun. And we realised that if you wanted to start your degree apprenticeship with the police, at the same time you'd start a degree, academic year-wise, you'd need to be applying really by December, January time to get through the process. So we made an effort, and we have been to every sixth form. We've offered our time to every sixth form across Haringey. We were at Haringey 6th again this week. We've done 2 days there this week. We're at St Thomas More today for their careers fair. We've been on the Haringey Works Apprenticeships Fair. So again, really trying to get into the young people and actually had, in a good way, a very surprising reaction when people actually start talking about the degree apprenticeship. And the most common question is, how do we pay back the loan? And we say, no, we actually pay you to get the degree, which goes down a storm actually. Our partners, so this is where obviously why I'm here today, is to say, how can we deliver into your community better? So if you have community groups where you'd like us to go and talk to about these opportunities, as I said, I can get officers from virtually every background, pretty much, to come in and talk to the community groups about, you know, why, you know, policing is there for everybody. So if you don't want to be a full-time police officer, we've got specials, so unpaid officers, PCSOs, police staff, lots of opportunities there. And I still think it's the best job going. I don't know if Mr. Jones and Mr. Bartetti would agree, but I still think it's still the best job out there. And I've put on just, I've put this on actually just so that you can see the salary scales. And I will quote the Haringey Works Apprenticeship Advisor saying it's one of the best offers he's seen. He mentions ASOS is apparently pretty good, but ours is good as well. So it's a £30,000 starting salary to get your degree. So, so the fund, we've got some seminar dates coming up if people are interested, and I'm happy to take emails and send you the invites and the links to those seminars. In terms of what the funding amounts are, it's 900,000 for 3 years. That's across London, but it's not been segmented up into the areas. So if what you want to apply for, what you need for your project, you can apply for that. So that is to help us deliver outreach recruitment activity across Enfield and Haringey. So again, if you want some more information on that, just drop me a line and I'll send you the Teams links. That's it. But I said I wouldn't talk too much. How was that? I've had questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie, for the presentation. So I just got a bit of a background noise because I got my children just came back from school, so apologies for that. So I got sorry, I got a little one's a bit angry about something. I don't know why. So I got Marco next, and then I'll move on to Chris.
Hi everyone, hello. So just to reiterate all the work that Debbie and her team is doing, I'm a Haringey child. I'm a as everyone knows, it's a boring story, but I'm a Turnpike Lane Haringey child who went to St Thomas More School and St John Vianney School and St John Vianney Church, and I was recruited by my school's officer, WPC Anne Smith OBE, who spent 30 years working in Haringey. Bless her, she well deserves her retirement many years ago. And tonight I'm going to go to St Thomas More School to one of Debbie's outreach events with one of my PCs, and we're going to take part and assist her team, just speaking to the kids there. So I fully endorse her work. It's something that the I've got a number of officers that work for me in uniform and plain clothes. I've got plainclothes officers attending the Wood Green launch events on their spare days. It's their days when they should be relaxing, catching up on their inquiries, and they're volunteering to go and speak to young people to try and encourage them to join. And I've also got my officers that own marked units attending an event tonight and tomorrow, and we've got some more events planned for Farm State as well. So just fully endorse the work. I do believe it's a fantastic job. And we would say that, not paid well enough though, I must say, but a fantastic job. So if anyone wants any more information from Debbie or Chris or I, we're happy to assist, and we're happy to arrange for ride-alongs if there's any people that are particularly interested in joining the police service. I was captured by being given 2 days in a police car, Wood Green and Hornsey police station, and after racing around the streets of Wood Green in the back of a police car with the blue lights flashing, that was me cooked. My mum wasn't happy. She wanted me to become a doctor, but but I'm very happy. I'll stop anyway. Thank you, Debbie, and your team.
Thank you. They're expecting you tonight.
Great, looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Chris.
Just to echo what Marco says, really, just thank you, massive thank you to Debbie. We're very lucky to have her in North area and her enthusiasm and the hard work she does. I think from my point of view, it is recruitment, but as Debbie alluded to, it's also engagement, and it's the crime prevention stalls, and it's the positive interactions with our communities in Haringey. So kind of it's multi-pronged for me. It hits many targets, and although Debbie's primary target is recruitment and to bring people into the police, it's having a real positive effect on our community. So I just want to say, like Marco, thank you, Debbie, for everything you're doing. I'm hoping that we'll get a bit of a crime reduction in the next 4 days. 15 police officers in the high road to Wood Green. You can't really miss us with a big media screen up. So yeah.
Anne.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Debbie, Chris, and Marco. Your passion and commitment and enthusiasm is bouncing off my screen here, so thank you very much for that. Of course, we all support the recruitment, campaigns that take place, and it sounds like you're well integrated into the routes through the pathways to access children, our community. I had a question post-recruitment and about retention, and I wondered what supports were on offer to Black and Asian and my other minority or ethnic or diverse people from diverse communities, what the retention was, because you will be aware, no doubt, that we are all hearing things that are less than comfortable to hear, but equally over the years I've heard that recruitment is works, and it's the retention. So I think if we in the room could hear some about the retention initiatives in place, then when we're speaking to people, we too can sort of get those messages out that yes, it's not just recruitment, but we know that there's support for retention. Thank you. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, that's
too
fine.
Challenging a question.
So when MOPAC wrote their action plan and brought these posts into being, so it's a big commitment. It's 50 officers and 12 outreach leads across the Met. They also delivered the career development post specifically for underrepresented officers. You look up in the Met. Again, I'm quite new to the Met, and Mr. Jones will correct me, but I think we've got one female commander who's Black. We've got Mr. Booth, who's my boss, who's a Black Chief Super. And Mr. Jones, you can jump in on anybody above that I've missed. So representation is still not there. And if we look at, this is a bit of a bugbear, you're going to have to stop me on this, but I think if you're a young Black officer coming into the Met and looking up, you'd think, are the role models there as they should be? Representative-wise, no, they're not. And that's why we need these posts, the career development posts. They are there. We've got somebody on North Area delivering that. There are workshops, there's positive action. Since I've arrived, I've coached 2 officers successfully through the promotion process, 2 Black officers. It's coming, it's there. And I think once that role becomes more established, because I think Eleanor started the same time as me, about September, October, it will be there. But the investment has been made into those roles. Mr. Jones, do you want to jump in? No, I'd agree with you. I think it's worse than that, actually, Debbie. I think it's in terms of Commander Hadari, who I think you're speaking about. Yeah. She did a presentation, and I think actually across the country, she's now one of the only senior black females in the whole of the UK. So it's crazy figures. But I can reassure you that we are well linked in with our staff associations. So Marco is a lead for one of the police staff associations. I'm a BAME positive mentor, and I know that there are lots of colleagues online that are as well. And so there's been, helped recent candidates to progress up the ranks into senior positions, but it will take time because obviously we're recruiting and making sure the retention is there, not only just for underrepresented groups, but actually for career changes. So dads are sort of, in their mid 40s who actually, finishing the military or finishing another career and joining policing. And I've certainly seen a huge turnaround in flexibility of shifts and hours to recruit mums in as well. So people that have got young children, and so we're trying to not exclude anybody and trying to make sure that we retain a real positive cohort of everyone, because I think you're right, it's about the representation, but also for me it's about diversity of thought, and that that is more than just the underrepresented groups. That's the older, maturer colleagues. That's the grandparents that we bring into the police, so on and so forth. The single mums and single parents. So there is lots and lots of stuff that going on. And again, I'm happy if anyone wants to reach outside to sort of say, what can I put it on a bit of paper for you guys in terms of helping you brief your staff or people that you know. I don't know if Marco wants to come in and add any bits to that.
No, that's it's great what Chris said. I fully agree. I think it's that retention is a concern. It's a concern at all ranks and grades, particularly specialist ranks and grades as well. Something that we want to offer officers and support staff is a career that could start at Haringey but take you somewhere else, that can take you anywhere else in the world. Because whilst there is significant criticism of the Metropolitan Police Service, which we've all seen in the press, I still regard it as the finest police service in the world. And I can say that as a cop who, and everyone's heard this, as a cop who spent the last 6 years working abroad internationally, selling the Met and selling UK CT police. We are world renowned. The brand of Scotland Yard is fantastic. It is going through a challenging period now, but people, whenever we meet as cops anywhere around the world at meetings, and you say from the Met and Scotland Yard, you stand out. You do stand out, and it's something that a badge I wear with pride. I still wear it with pride, even though I'm very incredibly disappointed in the behaviour of some of our colleagues. I still wear it with pride. So hopefully we can embody that in our officers, can't we, Chris?
I think Marco, to add to that, and I launched Edmonton Green Town Centre team. So we've had the Wood Green team, Town Centre team that's launched in December. I was launching the Edmonton one yesterday. Over 100 residents and stakeholders there. That night previously, 2 of my safe neighbourhood officers were trying to revive a 18-year-old boy that had been stabbed in the heart in Enfield, and they were working on him, CPR, breathing into his mouth to try and save his life, covered in blood, all the kind of horrendous scenes that you can imagine in your head. And for me, they represent policing. I won't use the word, but the idiots that are in the Met Police that have done this stuff and have embarrassed us and tarnished our names. No one I can really categorically say to you that no one in the Met currently welcomes them to be in the Met. Commissioner's been very open that she doesn't want them in her police service, and we don't, because it's the people on the ground that do that kind of stuff, try and save lives, that then are affected by that kind of tarnishing of their reputation. Is a reputation of everybody. So yeah, I'll just echo what Marco says. Some incredible things that happen in Haringey and Enfield in terms of police officers risking their lives or doing some extraordinary things, and the few idiots, let's put it that way, who destroy
the Met's credibility and reputation damage all of our brand and damage us and damage community relations. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I got Beverly Tucker next.
Yeah, thanks very much. And this is and Debbie and others. It's a really welcome initiative to ensure that the police sort of reflects the diversity of the communities that they serve. I suppose just picking up on the theme of the sort of really adverse, negative press that certain recent events has kind of illuminated. There is something for me, and it speaks to Anne's point about retention, but also around attracting people from diverse communities into the Met. And I think one would appreciate that there needs to be some kind of cultural change and quite sort of overt sort of articulation of what that might mean. I think some of us were at a recent session with Seb, who really talked about that sort of wide initiative to change the culture within the police, and how that could be sort of taken forward and measured, etc. There's something for me about how your campaign, I didn't see it come out in the sort of presentation, is actually quite upfront acknowledging that there are all those challenges, albeit, that they're, not as widespread, hopefully, as what the media would like to portray. But there's just something around gaining the confidence of people we're trying to attract to the service and be quite explicit about, these are the challenges we're facing. This is how we're helping to surmount them. And actually, by joining with us, we can work together, etc., etc. It didn't really come out clearly in the messages, and I just wondered if you had any thoughts about that approach. Thanks.
So I don't know if I'll just bring Debbie on in 2 seconds, but I think they're all very good points articulately made. But I would say that the beauty of the outreach is having face-to-face conversations with officers to talk about those. And I don't want to talk for Debbie, and I'm sure Debbie will come in and say, but the conversations I've had, people have been able to say, is it really like that? I've heard this stuff. Does that happen? And the honest answer is yes. Obviously, sometimes it does happen, but that's not the wider reflection of the service. And maybe we're going a bit too deep for this meeting, but I also think society have got a problem, because we're not going to a factory and unpacking police officers. We are recruiting from communities, and some of this behaviour, and let's be honest, some of this behaviour goes on in football WhatsApp messages, in rugby football messages, in golfing, and this kind of, some of this horrendous behaviour happens in society, doesn't it? And officers are recruited from the community, and so I think there's a larger community boil to lance here as well, around how we all, as mums, dads, grandparents, teach our children and talk to our families around respect for women and behaviour and professionalism and that kind of stuff. So I know I'm probably opening a can of worms there, but I just feel like officers will have those conversations. And I regularly have those conversations with young people, cadets. I'm obviously in charge of community policing, so the vast majority of my week is evening meetings and speaking to large community groups around stop and search, racism, disproportionality, and we have those honest conversations. But Debbie, I don't know whether you want to add anything to that.
Only that the only way that I think people can come and find out for themselves is by talking to us, and this is why this is so important, this outreach work. You can't just go online and look at digital adverts sometimes and think, that's changed my mind about policing, I want to be a cop. It's to get in a room with, and again, be upfront about it, a black officer from Nigeria who's been in this country 10 years, and I'm talking about somebody specifically, who can talk to a fellow, black African guy saying, what's it really like? I can't do that. I wouldn't have the credibility to do that. But, I can talk to women about what it's like to be a detective and a female leader in policing. But that's why it's really important for me at these events. I have people from different backgrounds who can actually associate with the people walking through the door to say, what's it really like? What I do hear a lot, and I have heard over the years, is I wouldn't be a police officer in my home country, but now I'm here and England's my home, Britain's my home, I'll be a British police officer. And I hear that a lot. So again, in terms of trust and confidence, yes, it's probably the worst time we've had for trying to recruit new police officers. But in terms of what other people think from other countries coming into the UK, it is still quite different, I think. And again, I'm from the UK. I'm from Tottenham actually. But yeah, but for coming into to this country from others, even Italy, Mr. Bardetti, someone said to me, I wouldn't be a cop in Sicily, but I'll be a cop in the UK. So different perspectives, I guess. Actually, it's actually quite helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, I got Heather next.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. So interesting. And just things like this make me go and want to get involved. Anyway, so obviously we work with a lot of vulnerable people in Prevent, and a trend that we've actually seen in our sort of clients that we work with is their desire or interest in either joining the police force or joining police cadets or being involved in some sort of military, organisation. So how would we make this scheme sort of accessible to them? Do you have any resources that we're able to promote and hand out to our sort of clients? Is this an annual scheme? Because obviously the deadline's probably looming for the next cohort, but is it going to happen frequently? And would you welcome sort of applications from people or young people that have been through government sort of preventative bordering on the sort of criminal justice programs and schemes? Is there any barriers essentially? Well, vetting's obviously case by case basis. What they tend to look for is a passage of time. So between whatever any kind of criminality involvement was and between applying, they'd look for some passage of time on that. What I would say is care leavers particularly make very good police officers because their level of maturity is perhaps obviously different to those people who've just come through a very safe family environment. So an 18-year-old who's a care leaver can be a really good police officer. But is the scheme it's open all the time? Recruitment is open all the time. What I would say is, again, don't go it alone. For your clients, don't go and try and apply on your own. A supported candidate is more successful. That's why come and talk to us, and we'll give you loads of hints and tips. We give you a delegate pack around what to expect at every stage of the recruitment process, what the police competencies are that we test you against throughout the recruitment process. Lots of, it's still the police recruitment process is a language, and we want to teach that language before you apply. But yeah, I would say it's open all the time. The sessions are every month, so just drop me an email and we can work through on that. If that's all right, Heather. Thank lovely. You. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Debbie.
Thanks, Hubert.
Thank you, Councillor Logan. Debbie, yes, the timing was perfect. Thank you. So it's a question for me. As Marco, I'm a local kid. I think I've been working for Haringey probably my 35th year, my first and only job in Haringey. So yeah, boy to man. But when I speak to a lot of people in Tottenham, it's about the generational issues. It's about the older parents having issues that's really preventing their young people from joining the police force. Is there anything that's been done proactively about engaging with the parents? Because I know that they could be a stumbling block to our young people actually being interested. Some thoughts around that, Debbie, please.
Yeah, when we send the invites out to the particularly to the insight sessions, we say bring a +1, bring a mum, bring a dad, let them talk to us. There's no restrictions on that, and especially we have found just experience-wise is especially young age females or perhaps want to bring an older family member with them. We're absolutely really receptive of that. We want to get the family buy-in. It's really important. But again, these are honest conversations. We don't sugarcoat this, and you will have particularly black officers when they're asked, did you lose friends when you joined the police? They will say yes. Again, we're not going to sell people the land of milk and honey here. It's policing, but you will make amazing friends and you'll have a second family. And it's really important. I sell these insight sessions as your family coming to meet our family, have a drink, have something to eat and sit around a table and have a conversation. But yeah, you're absolutely spot on that. I mean, my my uncle was on Broadwater Farm at the time of, you know, in the 80s. So yeah, I get it. When I applied back in the day, and thanks for reminding me, Mr. Jones, back in 89, 90, my family were like, you're joining the police, but we're from Tottenham, you don't. But I did. And I think you're 100% right. Bring the families with us.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you for your presentation. It's very interesting, and especially about the conversational approach. I think that's one of the good models going forward, trying to understand people's reluctance of joining to the police, and how that kind of conversation will be really, really helpful. So yeah, thank you. The next on the agenda is DHR, verbal update from Manju Lukman.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Manju Lukman. I'm the Finance Women and Girls Strategic Lead in Public Health. I'm just here today to advise you that unfortunately we had a domestic homicide just before Christmas, and this is the second one that we've alerted the Community Safety Partnership Board to, because you are ultimately responsible to making sure that we do carry out DHR. So just to let you know that we formally have notified the Home Office, and they have agreed for us to undertake our domestic homicide review process. And we have appointed an independent chair to carry out this review. So we've got now 2 reviews going on in Haringey as per due process. This whole process is completely confidential. We've got a panel set up, and the Community Safety Partnership Board will be advised accordingly once the review has been completed. And then hopefully a series of recommendations will be put in place, and then we'll be responsible for actioning those recommendations. The length of the reviews will be dependent on whether there is a court case taking place. We have just been advised on the first one that there is a court case taking place, which is not for another year. So there will be quite a delay for the first one. But I will advise you accordingly on the second one that we've just undertaken. So the first meeting will be on the 16th of March. So just to formally note here today, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Is there any questions from members, officers? No? No? Okay. Thank you for the update, Manju. Okay. So item 13, strategic assessment, verbal update from Sandeep.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a very brief update. It's just a verbal update regarding the Haringey strategic assessment process. So as I'm sure most of you will be aware, strategic assessment is an overview of crime and disorder trends over the past year in order to help us understand key patterns for things like community safety issues, and essentially where we need to focus our resources going forward for the next 12 to 18 months, for example. So the analytical process is currently underway, includes a focus on topics such as volume crime, acquisitive offending, as well as things like violent crime, robbery and weapon-enabled violence. This also allows us to benchmark our performance in Haringey against other London boroughs to understand the potential impact of things like our partnership work and the interventions that we've been discussing earlier today. So from some of the early findings, it really suggests that things like violence and robbery remain some of the highest harm areas for Haringey and would likely be things we'd want to continue to focus on going forward. Additionally, other high harm crime types, things like antisocial behaviour, which we know have seen increases, sexual violence, domestic abuse, child sexual exploitation, as well as hate crime, which again has seen an increase over the past 12 months, would likely be the areas that we would want to focus on going forward as Community Safety Partnership. So really the intention is for a summary of these findings to be brought to the next Community Safety Partnership Board in order to update all partners on those pertinent findings, and to really jointly talk about how we can build upon the current picture, build upon some of our successes, and hopefully help to maintain and keep the borough safe. So really just an update to let the board know that we will be bringing an update to the next meeting, and that the Community Safety Strategic Assessment process is underway at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you. Is there any questions, members, officers? No? Okay. Thank you very much, Sandeep. Any other, okay, so new items of any business?
Chair Hubert's got his hand up.
Oh, Hubert. Okay.
Sorry, Councillor. It was just a very short ask regarding Sandeep's item. If all partners can really contribute to our strategic assessment, so we get a really strong, rich strategic assessment, as my director in children would say. so that we can be really effective going forward. So just an ask for me again. Thank you.
Thanks, Hubert. New items of urgent business? No, there is none.
No.
Any other business? Joe.
Chair, just for the partnership board, I'll also be bringing the revised information community safety information sharing protocol to the next meeting as well for discussion and agreement.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. Dates of the future meetings. I think it's on the agenda pack.
To be decided.
We decided. Good. Excellent. So if there isn't any other questions from members officers, I would like to thank members and officers for joining the meeting, and I will close the meeting then.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thanks
you
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.